Hello everyone, class is in session. I hope you're all feeling suitably hardcore today. Not in that way, that sounded wrong. Because this week's episode of Monday Night Raw was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the most fightingest city in the United States of America. I'm dropping my notes and everything, it's just got really intense. So what better way to celebrate the intensity of this episode of Monday Night Raw than with a quiet sit down and a look segment by segment through Monday Night Raw and grading each one appropriately and sensibly, with a mind to both short-term and long-term booking as well. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is Monday Night Raw's Graded. So we start things off with the three big heel boys in the ring, Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. They basically reminded us what happened last week when they beat The Shield in one of those 3-on-3 six-man tag team matches that The Shield sort of used to specialise in, but not so much anymore because they don't win all of them all the time. In fact, they lost that one against the three heel lads, and that was very much their point, and they gave us a nice video package to demonstrate. Then they shifted their attention to the World Cup. Drew McIntyre said, I'm going to qualify for the World Cup. I have a qualifier match tonight and I'm going to go on and win at Crown Jewel. And then Dolph Ziggler went, well, I've also got a qualifying match for tonight. So maybe when I progress to the World Cup also, maybe I'll see you in the final and maybe I'll win. And then Braun Strowman went, shut up. I'm going to win the Universal Championship at Crown Jewel. And I was like, right, that's got nothing to do with what your two mates were talking about, Braun. Just calm down. Then the Shield's music hit and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns hit the stage. Not Dean Ambrose though, which the heels pointed out. They were like, well, where's Dean Ambrose then? If you're such a little tight-knit collective, where's your pal? And Rollins was like, oh, he runs on Ambrose time, you know? And you could tell the amount of times that running on Ambrose time, or later on running on lunatic time, as he would later say it in the episode, the amount of times that he said that, you could tell that the writer who thought of it was really proud of that one. He was like, oh, it makes me sound so cool, doesn't it? Yeah, down with the kids. Anyway, Rollins says, you know what, I love Philadelphia because it's a fighting town, as I mentioned in the intro there, hardcore. And he said, you know what, because it's a fighting town, let's get down and fight right now. Me and you, Drew, our qualifying match for the old World Cup. Let's go right now. And that's exactly what happened. I can't really think of any sort of way of grading this segment in any sort of nuanced fashion. It was very basic. All the guys did a decent job, and it was fine. A fine opening to the show, albeit a little bit of a tepid one. There were no sparks flying, but it was okay. I'm going to give it a B. Just a solid B. So then we had Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins, and this was fun. This was a lot of fun, this match. The story kind of was that Drew had Seth really well scouted because they've clashed numerous times in the past now. He caught a suicide dive at one point. He reversed the old superplex into Falcon Arrow with a Falcon Arrow of his own, which I really liked. So it was really making Drew look intelligent for adapting his game to a familiar opponent over the past few weeks. However, it only took a matter of time until Dolph Ziggler got involved to try and help Drew out, low-bridging Seth Rollins out of the ring. He pulled the top rope down and then went to attack him on the outside. And then Dean Ambrose came out from the crowd. He operates on Ambrose time, but here he is now. No, there was a bit of a fight, bit of a brawl on the outside, and Drew McIntyre came and just clocked Dean Ambrose, and it looked like Drew was going to take advantage of the situation, but then he was met with a curb stomp, surprise curb stomp on the outside, and then Seth Rollins just beat the count inside the ring, like someone trying to beat their mates in cheap fashion on 2K19. Got back in the ring, and Rollins was the winner by count out. I love a count out victory when it makes sense. I love it. I pure love it, lads. I'm going to give this segment a B+. The match was good. Both guys have good chemistry, Rollins and McIntyre. I enjoyed the little twist with Ambrose as well, but backstage though, Rollins was like, oh, team, cheers, mate. Running on lunatic time, aren't you? That writer's there going, oh, that sounds so cool. Running on lunatic time, aren't you? And Dean was like, sure, Dad. And he was basically a moody teenager. He kicked off for no real reason. Bit of jealousy maybe because Rollins and Reigns both have titles and he doesn't right now. I guess that's what we're meant to infer. But yeah, the Shield on, totally fine yet. So we'll see how that develops later on. Next up, we had a pre-shot, backstage segment, sort of / vignette / hype package interview for the old DX versus Brothers of Destruction match. Because DX came out to the ring last week and cut a promo, but this week they mustn't have been able to get. Kane's probably busy doing politics, and Undertaker's probably busy digging holes for souls, and yeah. So they just pre-shot this thing backstage, and it was like the standard Kane and Undertaker, they're gonna rest in peace, Shawn Michaels can go back into retirement, Triple H can go back to the boardroom, but their souls belong to us. We're the Brothers of Destruction, and they're in like a dark, purpley, sort of foggy room, and even if you haven't seen it, you can totally imagine what it was like, 100%. I was going to give this a C because it's Undertaker and Kane, and they have a certain aura about them, and the decades of respect and work they've put into the business. I guess I'll give it a C+. I'll give it a little boost, but it was nothing special. It was just a Kane and Undertaker saying spooky things promo. Next up, we had Ember Moon and Nia Jax, who's been sort of an ally of hers, an informal sort of ally over the past few weeks, against Dana Brooke and the returning Tamina Snuka. It was exciting to see her after a while recovering from injury on the sidelines, but at the same time, this wasn't a particularly strong match, it's sad to say. In fairness though, to Tamina, she did have the most exciting spot of the match. She hit Nia Jax with a big Samoan drop after really selling the effort of getting Nia Jax onto her shoulders. It was really good. The rest of the match was a little bit disjointed and a little bit sloppy. Needed more Ember Moon in my opinion, because obviously she's the best wrestler of the four. I think everyone would probably agree. But she did pick up the victory with the Eclipse. And then we had one of those things where basically they've announced a Battle Royal for Evolution, and now that a stipulation's been announced, all the wrestlers just happen to if it was a ladder match, I bet there'd be an assault after the match involving ladders, or if there was a tables match, someone would put someone through a table. In this case, because it's a Battle Royal, they all chucked each other out the ring, regardless of the teams at the start of the match. And the last woman standing was actually Dana Brooke, so she's not going to be winning the Battle Royal Evolution. Unfortunately, I am going to give this a D. I don't understand why Dana Brooke and Tamina were teaming. It was just kind of thrown together. It was okay. It was a bit sloppy, to be honest with you, but I was happy to see Tamina back, and it was inoffensive. But at the same time, I really found that whole Battle Royal spot afterwards really unimaginative too. So. The D sounds harsh, but it really ground the momentum of the show to a halt. And also, push Ember Moon immediately to the push her to the moon. Bars. Next up, well. You've probably heard about this already, even if you didn't see Raw. If you were on any form of social media and you follow any wrestling accounts, you probably saw what happened here. Ronda Rousey hit the ring and cut a promo against the Bellas, who were at the top of the stage. And it got mean. I don't know what to make of it, because it was so biting. They really gave Ronda shooty material to work with here. And it got crowd reactions, to be fair. But whoa, let's break down what was said. So Ronda, obviously feeling aggrieved because she's angry at the Bellas because they pretended to be her friends, but she ripped into them. She said that they have made their names off the back of their men, or I guess ex-men, or potential men. I don't know what the deal is with Nikki and Cena right now, but certainly Brian and Brie, of course, who are married and have a kid. And then she said, you've also plagiarized their move sets, because Brie uses the kicks, Nikki uses a few Cena-esque. It makes sense again. I think that's more of an accusation against Brie, really, than Nikki, to be completely truthful, but popped the crowd. And then Nikki came back with the sort of, it was a strange mixture of a deluded heel promo, but one that a lot of people on Twitter were going yeah, that's right, where she was saying, we've broken down barriers, and and I honestly read that as a deluded heel thing, like what The Miz would say when he says he's the greatest of all time or whatever. But people were like, no, Nikki, I don't understand. I think she's a good wrestler and I like her and I think she's a brilliant heel, but I don't know why people find Nikki Bella so inspiring a figure. I guess when she came back from injury, that was quite cool. But I don't understand. I'm not the target demographic, I guess. But a lot of people on Twitter were like, yeah, she has broken down barriers and all this. And I was like, no, she's clearly trying to be a heel and get heat. And I thought it worked. I thought that was what it was. But then Ronda said the controversial line, the only thing you've broken down was the door to John Cena's bedroom. Now, that's a heavy, heavy line. So then the Bellas were like, well, why don't we come and fight you right now? And Ronda was like, okay, I'm literally Ronda Rousey. You can try it. It's probably not going to go well for you. But the Bellas had no intention of actually going down to the ring. Instead, a fleet of security guards went down to try and separate the two, or the three. And then Ronda got annoyed and beat up a few of the security guards that stood in her way, and the Bellas got away. It was all right, A- though for this. Honestly, let me explain. So there've been accusations that this was a badly written promo because Ronda was mean to the Bellas. I don't understand really. The Bellas are the heels, Ronda's the babyface. I get one point, which is that people have said it's a bit slut-shamey, which I can see because Ronda's basically mocking Nikki for, happening to be with the top guy in the company for all these years. And it's I do sort of see where they're coming from, but at the same time, it wasn't the most egregious thing that's ever been said. People weren't really complaining when AJ Lee said it. And I think that the main thing I took away from this wasn't I get why it would be a little bit controversial, but there's been far worse things on Raw all the time. But the main thing I took away from this was that Ronda has improved on the mic, leaps and bounds. Suddenly she's just good at promos. She used to be really ropey at them and has just picked them up so fast. It's really, really impressive. And that's the main reason I'm giving this an A-, because I thought Ronda here was really impressive. Next up, we have the other World Cup qualifier. So Seth Rollins obviously qualified by defeating Drew McIntyre, which means there's now an entire field of Americans in the World Cup. Sorry, the World Cup to determine the best in the world. Now we had the next qualifying match for the World Cup to determine the best in the world between Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler. Now, a quick chemistry lesson here. Okay, so Drew and Dean, good chemistry. Seth and Dolph, good chemistry. Seth and Drew, good chemistry. Dean and Dolph, this combination, not so good chemistry, and I can't work out why. Every other combination of these four lads against each other have good chemistry. It's just Dean and Dolph who apparently don't so much. So yeah, the match was a little bit flat, but I really enjoyed the booking here. I thought that it was booked very, very smartly indeed. Basically, Drew ran down to try and help Dolph out when Dean had the upper hand. So Dean sort of fought him off, and then Rollins came out a little bit too late. And Dean rejected his help. He shoved him away, and then Ambrose went a roll back in the ring, got caught by a flash super kick, and Dolph pinned him 1, 2, 3. And it was more ructions in the Shield. Seth's kind of cost Dean, but not really. But Dean's going to see it that way. And after the match, he shoved him aside, and Roman had to come out and calm both of them down. And then Baron Corbin came out and booked the same main event as we had last week. So I don't get that bit at the end. Why did Corbin feel the need to do that? But I enjoyed the rest of the developments anyway. I'm going to give this a B. The match was okay, crowd was dead, the booking was good, Corbin's involvement was weird. So I think that all adds up to a B in my head. Next up, Jinder Mahal versus Finny Balor. Now, this was like a squash match essentially, which is weird considering that Jinder's a former WWE champion. But Finn just ran through him in a match. I mean, Finn's a former Universal champion to be fair, but he ran through him in about a minute and a half, pinned him with the coup de grace, and Bayley was at ringside for Finn, and Alicia Fox was at ringside for Jinder, and both Singh brothers were ringside for Jinder too. That's right, he's back. Injured Singh is back on the beat, helping out Jinder walking the street. Don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to grade this either, because it was too short to really fathom, and also at the same time, Jinder and Finn have been feuding now for what feels like 4 months, 4 millennia. So I'm going to give it the old question mark grade if Sam still has that image on his computer, and just leave it there. But welcome back, Mr. Singh. Yes, hooray. Next up, another squash match between Bobby Lashley and Tyler Breeze. A little bit more of an extended squash, so I know that I can grade this one. I can sort of gather what I'm going to do. Bobby Lashley had Lio Rush at ringside again on the microphone, getting heat and stuff. And I'm fine with that for the time being, but if it drags on much longer, it is going to start getting, not heel annoying, just legit annoying. But for now, it still works. Lashley won against a beloved babyface in Tyler Breeze, so it did its job. And also, in between the two matches, this one and the previous one, there was a bit of a standoff between Lashley and Balor, which I think they're definitely teasing a feud between the two in the near future. So it's all working out all right. I'm going to give this a B-. I thought, well, Lashley's, he's in his element now that he's a heel, isn't he? And I'm really glad that they turned him. And I was glad to see Tyler Breeze get a run out too. We don't see enough of him, especially since Fandango got injured. Then we had Trish and Lita, who came out to the ring to hype their Evolution Tag Team match, and their opponents came out on the stage, Alexa and Mickey, and they did impressions, I guess, of the babyfaces, but they didn't really change their voices, which I thought was the entire reason of the entire concept of an impression is that you change your voice, you know? Like if I'm doing Adam Pacini, I talk like, you know what I mean. But regardless, it was a bit of a weakly written segment, to be honest. But it did get one laugh out of me when Alexa went, "I'm Trish Stratus," and did the point and stuff. That's fair enough, because I never understood why Trish points, and she kind of lampooned it in a funny way. Then there was something very misguided that happened. So basically the heels were talking about how they're definitely going to win because they've had more practice, they're on the road all the time against these part-timers. And Trish and Lita referenced Allen Iverson's press interview from, I think 17 years ago, maybe 18, where, because Allen Iverson, right, don't worry guys, if you don't know basketball, your boy does, right? I'm just going to break it down for you. And I'm from the streets too, so don't worry about any of the cool athlete basketball slang or anything. It's going to be totally fine. So Allen Iverson used to play for the Philadelphia 76ers, who are the basketball team from Philadelphia where Raw was. So they referenced a thing that a basketball player, a really good one, said well over a decade and a half ago in the city that he used to play for. It's really weird. basically what happened was he'd missed some practice sessions or something, and then in an interview he was like, oh, we're talking about practice, not a game. We're talking about practice, as if to like say, this isn't important at all, why are you wasting my time? He was a bit of a rascal like that, was bloody Alan. Crazy. Trish and Lita sort of just jammed that in out of nowhere and really made like, they were like, oh, practice. Yeah, we need some practice. Practice. But Alan Iverson was talking about how practice isn't important because he was so arrogant and talented, whereas they're talking about how they do need some practice and they want to beat up Alexa and Mickey to... Didn't make any sense, man. It's really annoyed me, this. Really, actually, really did. It didn't go anywhere, of course. The heels didn't run in. They pretended they were going to and then they bailed. This gets a D. A D. I was going to give it a D+, but I'm just giving it a D because that Allen Iverson reference was so shoehorned in and so misguided. I really, really didn't enjoy it. I'm sorry. Next up, Angle was sort of pottering around backstage for the first bit of the show. So Baron Corbin booked him in a match against both Authors of Pain. Oh, no. Angle had just got back from his vacation, which he used as an excuse to end of the World Cup, you know, by winning that Battle Royal when he was disguised as the Conquistador. He came out as the Conquistador again because he left his ring gear because he just got back off vacation. You see what the deal is here. It wasn't Kurt Angle in the outfit this time. He pulled the old switcheroo. The Authors of Pain just beat up some random man. He looked like a younger Bob Backlund in my opinion, but I don't know if I'm just misremembering. So it turns out that wasn't Angle who got beaten up by the Authors of Pain, and Baron Corbin came out like, what? Where is he? And he was behind him. Classic pantomime stuff. Angle hit an Olympic slam or an Angle slam on the stage, and it got a nice pop from the crowd. And I think one of commentary pointed out that Angle in his holiday gear looked like Hunter S. Thompson, which was a really funny shout, because it's really true as well. I think Corey Graves made a Bat Country reference. Oh, literary stuff just flying about. Post-war, postmodern literature. Come on. Yes. I give this a B, honestly. I find this really charming. Angle's one of the most charming, endearing wrestlers of all time. And it was just, yeah, it's funny. Oh God, I hope he wins the World Cup. The World Cup to determine the best in the world, or whatever. Next up, Ruby Riott versus Natalya, which was set up by the Riott Squad, squirting ketchup and mustard on Natalya's dressing room door backstage. I wouldn't be too annoyed if I was Natalya. That's not like her front door of her actual house where she lives. That's just the room that she's in for that one night of the venue. I'd be more annoyed if I was cleaning staff at the arena, but I didn't really buy this. Anyway, Natalya brought her back up in the form of not just Bayley, but Sasha Banks as well. She's back, which I'll explain about when I grade this segment. I'll explain my thoughts on that, right? But it got a big pop because Sasha's back after being mysteriously absent for quite a while. So this match wasn't that good, sadly, and it's a shame because I'm a fan of both Natalya and Ruby Riott. Natalya got the sharpshooter on at one point. One of the Riott Squad came in and basically clocked her from behind to save Ruby Riott from tapping out. DQ finish. Everyone had a big brawl and the faces stood tall at the end. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to give this it's either a C- or a D+. It's a D+ because they didn't get enough time, first of all, right? Which, you know, it's not anything that sort of developed any storylines in a really meaningful way. And what action there was sadly a little bit sloppy. Both women looked a little bit off their game here. I also found it cheap the way they brought back Sasha Banks, as if expecting a big pop from everyone, which they got. I don't think that's fair, really, because you can't leave her off television without an explanation. Like, just tell us she's injured or whatever, or just make something up. But they just didn't acknowledge it at all. I don't care if they tell us the truth, why she's away or not. It's private business, but they need to come up with some sort of reason. I'm so furious I've dropped my notes again. You can't just not mention that she's gone and then go, look who it is. It's the person we've neglected to tell you about for so long. And everyone's like, yay. No, don't go yay. Go, well, yeah, what the hell? You can't just make us forget about a character for no good reason. Make one up. Say she was off fighting polar bears or something. Next up, we had Elias, and this time he was interrupted by Apollo Crews. Interesting developments. Crews came out and said, you know what, I'm sick of being overlooked. It's my time to interrupt Elias. And Elias was like, I'm going to show you what happens when you interrupt Elias. And then Apollo Crews lifted Elias over his head, forgetting that he's a much larger man than himself, gorilla pressed him and stood tall. And it was genius. It was really good. I'm going to give this a B+. I'm a big fan of this new feud because honestly, I don't care who wins. I think that either man could win and it'd be really, really good. Elias could win and it would look cool for him. Apollo Crews, this could be his big chance to like get out of this rut that he's been in too. So yeah, B+, really enjoyed it. Simple segment, but a sensible one too. And finally, the big 6-man main event between The Shield and Drew, Dolph and Braun. I'm gonna have to consult my notes because this match has happened, it feels like it's happened so often recently that they've all started to blend into one and I honestly can't remember watching it. So I've got written down, Good match, but we've seen so many of these now, it feels like, well, yes, I've just said that to the camera. But this is basically the opposite of last week, because now there's dissension in the heel ranks. Last week, the Shield had a miscommunication, but now the finish sees Drew accidentally Claymore Braun Strowman, got speared by Roman. I've changed tenses there because I'm a bad writer. Gets speared by Roman. Dolph is isolated, Shield bomb for the win. So Drew accidentally hit Braun is the key thing there, and the Shield won. After the match, Dean Ambrose hugged his mate. He seemed alright, he seemed back on the same page as the Shield again. And they all departed and went up the ramp all like, yeah, we're big, good lads, and we're good at fighting in the fighting city of Philadelphia. We're getting silly up in Philly over here. Who said that? Was that Roman Reigns one time? But then in the ring, all the heels just broke apart. Braun Strowman, for some reason, power slammed or running power slammed Dolph Ziggler, even though it was Drew who, I don't know, but then Drew Claymore kicked Braun on purpose this time and left the ring, and I was like, go on Drew, this is your big push, come on. I hope this does lead to something big for Drew, because he's great. I'm going to give this all a B+. The match was good, we've seen it a lot of times, but it was still good, and the post-match shenanigans were good too, and the show ended on an interesting note. On the whole, I enjoyed this Raw. It was a big improvement from last week, and I think that the reason for that is that the good stuff was the more important stuff, whereas the bad stuff was the kind of lesser important stuff on the card for now, whereas other weeks when Raw's been bad, it's been because one of their big storylines that they're pushing has really taken a bad turn or something, or there's been a bad match involving two really central figures in a story. This Raw was actually like, the good stuff was good, and the less important stuff was, you know, sweep it under the rug a little bit, but the main things that we're going to concentrate on, pretty decent. So I'm going to give this a B. It wasn't a spectacular show by any means, but it was perfectly serviceable. And I think that, you know, it's a step in the right direction for Raw. And once this whole Crown Jewel thing's out of the way, maybe then the storylines can start moving at a bit of a faster pace once again. That's what I really want to see. So that's it for this week's Graded for Monday Night Raw. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com, and I hope you've enjoyed getting silly up in Philly. You can follow me if you want on Twitter, Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic, and check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, if you haven't already, to hit subscribe and to join us.